God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. And the truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
Like there's that, you ever heard of the Clubhouse thing now?
I just heard about that, and I don't know what it is, but I think it just popped up in some stupid memes that are coming up.
Dude, I've been invited by so many people. I finally jumped on, but it's really weird because like Elon Musk
Yeah.
will just be talking with a couple people and you can just sit and listen, you know, and it's just like really weird. It's just like there's a conversation happening and like you can listen to tons of different, I don't know.
So it's like this weird voyeuristic thing.
Yeah, it's strange. Like
Do you pay for it?
No.
Sorry.
I think you have to be invited somehow. Someone invited me and I clicked it. But the other day, like Bobby Chu at Schoolism was doing a thing about mental health in the art world or whatever.
Right.
There's all these people on there talking. Like, man, there's like hundreds of people listening though. And
Yeah.
then, well, like 3 people going back and forth talking, and it's just like the strange. It's almost like a podcast in a way, like, but yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. It's very strange. But my point is like things just keep changing so fast.
Right, I know. Yeah, it is weird. I think like, I'm sure we can talk about this. I mean, I don't know if you have like topics you want to talk about, which is fine. But everything, I think since people are online so much more now, I don't even understand half of it, but I'm just doing my best to kind of mentally, you know, like stay healthy mentally, you know, which has been like tricky, but I don't even know how I can't even tell anymore, you know. I think like you need to hang out with people to kind of be able to judge that. And luckily I do still have a, you know, group of people that hang out in person.
Yeah.
You know, so where are you located anyway? I mean, anyway, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. I'm in Chicago.
Okay, cool. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned that. Yeah, I love your illustrations, everything. I always notice them. Obviously, I think I've been following you for probably at least 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
There's something like that. I mean, it's kind of like Instagram is different now because when I first joined, it was a lot better in a way because every time someone would do a new piece, it would definitely show up in your feed.
Yeah.
And now I find that you have to search people out a little bit more.
Yeah, that happens. I same thing. I'm like, I haven't seen a post from this person for a while. And I look for them, and then there's like a shit ton of things.
Totally.
Anyways, hey, we already started talking, but I might as well just do an intro and we just keep going into this.
Sure, I'll let you do it.
Yeah, let's just do that. I mean, it's just part of the show. I have to say, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Face the Truth.
Got it.
I am super excited to talk to this guy. He's you know, this painter fella. He likes to paint. No, seriously though, I love this guy's work so much. Anyone that knows me knows my, you know, rants about painting and different things. I have a weakness. I have a weakness in the knees for sexy brushwork, and this guy is no stranger to the sexy brushwork. I love it. I love the thickness, the painterliness, the sculpting. So strong design and aesthetics, and I mean, every single time he posts something, I'm just like, damn, love that, and it's awesome. So, anyways, that's enough rambling. Everyone, please welcome Hollis Dunlap. Hopefully I said that right.
You did. But yeah, thank you for the nice words. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, your paintings are just awesome, man. And I really, I mean, that's the one thing we were talking about Instagram, that's the one thing, or probably the one social media, you know, actually it's interesting. Like the mental health thing when it comes to, you know, being an artist and I've heard a lot of people talking about this recently with just everything that's been going on in the world with the pandemic and everyone's just locked up and everything. I mean, for us artists, it doesn't seem to be, for me anyways, that much different. I'm always locked in my studio. But I can tell that it's been more of an issue with my teenage daughters. You know, I can tell that there's more of a mental, emotional stress, and in that regard. But I've been hearing like artists. My wife just got back with my daughter, my baby daughters. I have lots of children.
Oh, really?
I have 4 daughters.
Nice job. Wow.
Yeah. So sorry about that. But what I was going to say is that there's been a lot of stuff going on online, like people like feeling like, Instagram, and there's like this mental stress that artists are having. Like they feel like they have to post all the time, and then like how many likes am I getting, and it lets them, it affects them, like how many likes am I getting per image, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just interesting because I was thinking about that myself, and I don't personally feel that way. I do check to see what's going on, but I look at it more of from a marketing type standpoint. Like, how well is this piece doing versus other pieces? So I know what to keep sharing, because ultimately what you want to do is get exposure. Why? So you can get more work. Right. That's the way I look at it. I'm not like, oh, did I get someone liked it? Like,
right.
I hope the right kind of people see it. But I was just wondering if because Instagram is one of those places where I discovered your work. I believe that's where I discovered it. But I love it. I think Instagram is the best social media. I think a lot of places are very toxic, but with Instagram, it's just like images, mostly, obviously. And then there's so many artists out there that I find, I'm like, man, this guy's amazing. She's amazing, whatever it is. And
same.
Yeah. I see it more positive, I guess, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's a mentally healthy way to look at it, I think. I think I do too still. I definitely think that obviously it's not quite as, how should I say, like, well, when I know that less people see my work now because of the algorithm changing, maybe. I still think it's the best of the social media for artists, probably, because it's the visual, and you're not kind of encouraged to like get on these long discussions or arguments with people. It's more like I don't put anything personal on Instagram for the most part. I use it as entirely like business oriented. Yeah. Because that's just the better way to use it for me. And it's not a substitute for real life. And I think that the weird thing for kids, I think it's a little different because it is kind of intertwined with their life maybe a little bit more than it is for, like, I'm 43 now. And so I feel like I was kind of lucky to grow up in a time when there wasn't that type of stuff, maybe, and where so my online life hasn't kind of taken on, it's not as significant as my real life, maybe, Yeah. But I think for some kids, it can almost like, there's a weird balance there, and I don't know, maybe that's just me. I get it. I'm not like a conspiracy theorist, by a long shot, but I do, but it's easy to start ruminating on it, but I do think I still enjoy it, and I do find it can affect how I feel, though. I mean, if I haven't put something up on there for like a week, let's say, I do kind of start to feel this pressure to like kind of grab the phone and let's just put up a random picture of my studio, and if I don't have a new painting ready yet, and I do try to push that away, kind of push that thought away a little bit, because it's just too much, because you're seeing, it's two things, because like when I went to art school, I would hear about a great painter, like, once every 3 months I would discover some new painter to get inspired by. Yeah. And like you said, now I can see 200 amazing paintings in a day.
Yeah. Every time you go to take a shit, there's like a new artist.
Yeah. And like, I know. And it's like, exactly. And it's great, but it's also can be overwhelming, because I'm like, now I want to do something that I get influenced by people easily.
Yeah. Same here.
And I love to try to kind of take ideas and sort of integrate them. And it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. And I find it's just better you have to push that aside and just paint or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of cool too. I mean, like I do think I've always had man, there's a lot I want to try to say in one thing here, but you know, going back just a little bit when it comes to like kids and stuff on the internet, I think I'm 43 as well, and I think that we kind of grew up in a really lucky time because we know what it was like when there was no such thing as a video store. We were there when video stores were invented, when VHS, when you could go and rent your favorite movie now.
I remember that.
And then when CDs and DVDs came out and all these different things, and then the internet. I remember the first time email was possible. I mean, we were, but we are also grateful for everything that came before, I think, because we understand that we didn't have that for years. And now everyone's got a fucking computer in their pocket that can take high def photos and they can do all these. And so I think like with my kids, I think that they're like my teenage daughters take, and it's not against them. I don't think they can help it. Like they take it for granted. I think they don't understand what we understand about it because they always have had this. I mean, I have a 3-year-old who knows how to use an iPad better than most adults.
Yeah, she has more technology in her pocket than the president had 20 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and it's amazing, you know, like the amount, like it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to think about it, you know, other than there's not much you can do about it. It's just, you know, I mean, I don't have kids, but I think that, but I mean, I've taught a lot of kids over the years, and as a parent, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's a challenge, you know, to try to navigate all that.
Yeah.
And, you know, allow them to have the technology, but in what feels like an appropriate amount for the age, you know, because
it's a lot of fun.
Kids are seeing things now that you wouldn't have seen before you were 15 or 20, you know, just 15 years ago, you know, and it's kind of, I wonder about that. You know, it feels a little bit like we're all in this big social experiment and we don't really know.
I was just talking with my wife about, like, I mean, I'm sure everyone's like this, but like, you know, you get to a certain age and you're like, why are my parents so goddamn crazy? You know, and like, I don't want to be that parent to my kids. Like, and like we were talking about our parents and like, why are they so nuts? And then I was wondering, is it maybe it's not just us, maybe it's the fact that we are, like what I said before, in this generation where we came up with the all the stuff introduced, and we've, like, our parents don't get certain things, right? You know what I mean? Like I feel that way sometimes where I'm like, how do they not understand this? But I understand it. But then I have this fear, like, I don't want to be like, I don't want my kids. My dad's such a nut job. He's so crazy. It's like,
you already are. It's like you're probably more like them than you think. That's the funny thing.
Yeah. I know. My teenage daughter, like, anytime I try to talk, they're like, oh God.
It's
like,
impossible to escape your genetics.
Yeah.
Like,
if they find out I know a song they like, they throw up in their mouth. They're like,
oh, that's so
gross.
funny.
How could you know that's? I don't. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That is funny.
I was gonna say though, like the technology aspect of it is, I think it's, you know, I started learning how to digital paint right at the cusp of when digital painting was really starting to become a thing, and it wasn't accepted anywhere. But I kept doing it because I was able to work basically the same way but quicker and do my work for my clients. You know, I always try to take advantage of these things that happen and ride the wave to, like, I feel like we have to. So like Instagram, for example, like you were saying about posting things, I think that some people can take it in a way where it really fucks with their mind. But also I do think it's important to drop something every once in a while, just because we have to be relevant. We have to, like, hey, guess what? Yoo-hoo, I'm here. And for you, you're in more of the fine art world. I'm more doing the illustration stuff. There are clients I've worked with many, many times who, like, I have to, like, send them reminders. Like, remember I exist. Like, I've done several covers for you. Like, oh yeah, you know what? And then all of a sudden they, like, a week later, they're like, hey, we got something for you. And it's like, I have to still remind you, you know?
Yeah, that's a strange thing about it.
Yeah.
It's the same with having a show if you're a painter, or for me anyway, it's very much about just reminding people you're there too. Because I think that, I don't know, maybe that's just a disconnect between artists who are obsessing about painting versus people that maybe buy art that have a totally removed life and then occasionally go to an art show, but they're not thinking about you all the time. And they're buying another artist and they might not, I don't know. I mean, you do, like, I like to have a physical show, and that's been a little more challenging lately, but I'm hoping that comes back. But for me, it's like important to get real people into a physical space to see physical paintings. Something happens there that's important for me in terms of, not only just making art sales, but just, I don't know, just everything, and I find that the online thing it's nice to be able to do it, but it's definitely not.
Yeah.
No.
It's sort of a necessary burden, like, because you don't want to not be like, I'm not a big fan of Twitter, but everyone keeps telling me I need to start, because I don't really like it. But I've got friends recently like, dude, you got to start posting stuff on there, because I was looking into the whole NFT thing. I might start playing
I looked
around.
into it too.
Yeah, so I'm kind of playing with it and seeing what's going to happen. And a lot of people keep like approach me about it, but then I got a really good friend who's helping me set it up. He's like, dude, you got to be on Twitter because you got to do this and this and like to connect this. And I'm like,
right.
I feel like I don't understand any of this stuff, but
well, I'm glad that I'm not the only one. I mean, I'm not on Twitter either, but I have friends that are on there, and it seems to be a slightly different world. Maybe it's more of a social thing, maybe, and like, I don't know what it is, but yeah, the NFT thing, I still don't quite understand it, but I'm like, well, the thought that I had was, well, I'm always like behind the 8 ball for all this stuff. So maybe I should do this now for once instead of waiting a year and thinking I should have done that,
yeah, you should give it a shot, man. I mean,
and why not? Right.
Yeah. That's the way I'm looking at it. Like, just see what happens,
Right.
But anyways, I want to talk about your paintings, man. Like,
okay.
like, your work is awesome. I'm wondering, if you want to share a little bit about your approach with your paintings, like just, technically and like what you're working on. Aesthetically, I get it. I look at your work and I'm like, dude, like I said, sexy stuff, man. I love it. The soft edges and just the a lot of just suggestive things. And there's like a nice, you've got like this is one thing I've noticed. Not every artist that can paint well has this, but you do. You have like an aesthetic, a look, a style that's like immediate. Like I see it, I'm like, dude, I recognize it right away. So I wonder if you could share a little bit about your thoughts on that, if within your work.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that, I think it's it's probably that I've had a lot of different teachers and influences, and there's a lot of different types of art that I like, and I like to try to take elements from every one. I didn't only study, I guess, one technique. I did a lot of drawing. So I think that the drawing aspect, just, that technical side does help, that then you could kind of take the influences and apply them maybe in a more effective way. Like, I think that, for example, like if you're good at drawing and you want to do something really whacked out with color, you may be able to make it more effective. I think that sometimes, like, one thing I see now is a lot of people like to put people into categories, and like what style their art is, whether it's classical or modern, and I'm always trying to get, modern galleries to recognize what I'm doing. I'm still working on that, because once you're in that kind of classical group, it's not like it's hard to get out of there. It's just, it's very identifiable if you're like kind of a representational painter. What I like to do is take non-representational elements and put them into the representational painting, like big flat areas of color, for example. Like, that's something I don't always see in a realist school. Often you'll see rendered figure with like dark background. Like I want to kind of reverse that, like make the background light and make, or
Yeah.
I just find like when you go to a museum and you look at like a big abstract piece, I like the visual effect of that big, might be a big, huge area of color. I like how that looks on a wall in a purely kind of decorative like environment.
Yeah.
So I want a realist piece to have that impact, where it's not just a rendered thing. And it's like, oh, look at how well the form is modeled or whatever. And I love that too. I think I kind of like where those 2 points converge. And I've been struggling with it lately. Actually it's not, or at least in the sense that sometimes I like my paintings more when they're like half finished. But I always want to finish them more. Like I'm doing a painting now that I started it out and I had a really good look like after the first 2 days. Then of course I had to try to push it further as usual, and I kind of layered it more, and the paint takes on a different look when you layer it. It loses a little of the freshness, the transparency, not to get too technical right away, but it's like so I kind of screwed that one up. So I just started another version of the same painting. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that same thing, but I still want to get some of the effect of like you mentioned, like building up the paint and the brushstrokes. I'm always kind of torn between that because I really admire smooth painting.
Yeah.
Because I see less of it now because it's very difficult to do well. And I see a lot of paintings that are really brushy. So I'm kind of trying to do, I guess, a little bit of both. And I always get the temptation to put on some really thick paint though, and just go crazy with it because it's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess to try to get it's more about just being influenced by so many different painters, and everybody's a little different, and kind of liking all of it.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, I'm doing a commission right now that I got, let's see, it's Wednesday. So I got it Monday night. I was told about it yesterday. I did the sketch, but it took all day to get approval. So I'm like, I gotta get it's due Thursday. And so, today I basically got most of it blocked in, and then tomorrow it's about refining. So really quick, I have to do, but I kind of, my approach, and I'm doing it digitally, but it's like, my approach is basically that kind of a feeling of, I want to keep it painterly and expressive and loose. And it just needs to be tight in the right areas to trick the viewer that it's a final painting.
Yeah.
I don't have.
Well, your work always looks. I mean, when I look at your work, I always can tell you have the technical skill to do whatever you want. That's the first impression I got. I mean, I always get that sense that you're making choices for that, which is good. I mean, that's what you want. Like, I want my work to look like that too. I mean, I want to be able to render as well as anyone, but I don't adhere to like, I think of like classical painting as it's like a religion. It's like there's a school of painting that like never works from photographs, and it's like, if you do, it's almost like you're sinning in some way. It's like, it reminds me, it's like you leave that cult. There's a point, and I remember it, like it's almost like and I'm still kind of part of that cult, I guess, but I'm also, I don't feel like I adhere to it as much, because I also like to just say, okay, I look at a piece and I say, does that look, what vibe is that projecting to me? Whether, I mean, if you're just talking visually, does it make me excited like by its visual aspect, or is it just like an ego coming through, and like, which a lot of like kind of academic work can be a bit like that. There's like a fine line, it's like Sargent. Everybody says, oh, Sargent, he's such an amazing portrait painter. I don't like him. I'm like, that guy, I mean, technically he's good, but I feel like those paintings are kind of, it's like this elaborate mask that's like hiding who the person really is. I want to know what the person did after he sat for the portrait. Like in that sense, I'm more interested in like expressionist portrait painting, I know I'm kind of veering off the topic a little.
No.
I can't even remember what our topic was, but like, I like work that feels truthful somehow to me, you know, and that's not even talking about, you know, whether it's like conceptual or social themes, you know, which I've only begun to even scratch the surface of. That's, you know, but obviously as you're dealing with that a lot more because you're doing, you know, I just saw your cover of Bernie Sanders. And I knew Bernie because I grew up in Vermont. So
Oh, wow.
I didn't know him really. I just met him a couple times, but my parents knew him a little bit, and he was around when I was a kid.
He's an interesting fella. Yeah, I did that painting of him a couple years back for some Las Vegas magazine. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. I think I'm going to drop that on my first NFT just to see how it goes, because he's so, and people get all weird about it politically. It's like, perfect. I don't know if we should do politically. It's like, listen, it doesn't matter. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm thinking about, it's a really cool looking painting.
Yeah.
It pops. And also he's kind of, politics aside, he's kind of become almost like this, you know, kind of like this cult like figure.
The rise of Bernie was kind of like Bitcoin. Kind of all of a sudden got popular.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, and obviously I shared like, you know, which one do people want? Everyone, most people say do the Bernie one. So I'm going to listen.
I think it's a good one to do.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah. You should tell me when you do it. I don't even know how that all works. I mean, we should have another discussion someday about all
I'm still trying to figure it out, man. Like, yeah, my friends are trying to, you know, explain it to me. I'm like, okay, I believe you.
Right.
Cool. We'll see what happens, man. I'm kind of just exploring it at this point, but
yeah.
What kind of, with your work, what's your process when you're going to do a painting? Like, I mean, are you the kind of person that does a bunch? Do you have like a concept or an idea before you do one where you're like, hey, I'm going to get someone to come and pose for this specific thing I'm seeing in my mind and sketch it and then transfer? Or do you just go right into the canvas and,
yeah, I do both of those things.
Okay.
Some of them take more planning, and a lot of times if I'm in like a rut, I just get a model to come over and I just paint something. Actually, that's not always true. Especially this last year. I think I worked from photographs a lot more this past year just because it wasn't that I wasn't comfortable with models. I just, who knows? I think I had models here probably 6 or 7 times total. And for short bursts, you know, maybe I think I did 2 paintings that were longer than that, but like, you know, it changed that for me, but I'm, you know, I want to get back to as soon as I can. I just started working with models like again, and it's good. I like that, you know. I mean, sometimes I'll do a drawing, although not as much lately. That's something I really want to get back into, because I've been finding lately that I'm too literal with things, and I want to start exaggerating the forms more and just kind of doing things more creatively and getting away from like what it looked like, you know, which is really, it's funny because I'm like, obviously that's interesting enough to me where I love doing a very traditional realist painting. I still enjoy that, even with no conceptual thing, just a purely technical thing. I love that process of just sitting down and doing like a 3-hour study, for example. So I love that, but I also I got a couple bigger ones going now that I did like a smaller study for. And then I'm doing like the final painting, I guess. And I'm doing this huge red one right now where I'm using like all my red paint just to see how, I guess I just thought this might be interesting. I don't know, but it's definitely different, you know, but the reason I'm doing it is I wanted it to almost have like the effect that like a Mark Rothko painting would have, where it's like a field of color, but it happens to be a figure. But it has that kind of abstract design, huge flat areas of color. So yeah, that one I did a smaller study for.
Is that the one with the woman's back?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that painting, because that right there that's one of the reasons why I love your work so much. I have not really seen a painting like that before. Just like it's so awesome. I don't know what makes it so like draws me in so much about it. I mean, it's a really interesting pose. I'm looking at it right now on my phone, but just that all those just the pinks and the reds and the violets, it's just like an interesting choice of color. But then that blue, it's like bam right there, and it's like, damn, that right there is the bit.
It needs it kind of. That shape, I'm actually doing the bigger one right now, and I'm kind of negotiating like what angle it's going to go. Like the top, I'm debating maybe it going diagonally, just like your shoulder, so it kind of echoes that. I don't know. I like those shapes because it gives it that kind of cubist feeling.
Yeah, this is an interesting. It's like it's an interesting combination of like, yeah, like it's, I can see like several different, like if you want to categorize different styles of painting, but it all flows. And I just, you know what it reminds me of a little bit is, it's interesting. I just haven't seen like fine artists, oil painters doing too much of that. Is, you know, I mean, I'm not involved as much as you are, so maybe you have seen a bunch of stuff like that, but to me it pops and it reminds me of like when I would do like quick studies, like digitally. And you know, I like, whenever I have some free time, I like to do like a quick blocking of someone, and I'll do that kind of a thing where I'll kind of do almost monotone or monochromatic, I'm sorry, where I'm just basically doing the whole thing, but then I'll just pop in some crazy color that makes the side of his head pop out more. And it's just playing. It's not something, it's almost like that Bernie piece. You know, for that, they told me, hey, just do whatever you want.
Isn't that one red too?
Yeah. And what I did was that
influenced me.
Well, the funny thing about that painting was they said, we don't care what you do, just do, and this, no one ever usually tells you this when you're doing a from magazine thing, but they're like, just make it look cool and do whatever you want. And I was in I think Sweden or someplace doing a workshop when I was doing it, and I was with my wife, and I thought, they said I could do whatever I want. I'm gonna make it real painterly, and what I did was I just did a red background, and then I was like, I'm gonna do a value painting, black and white, on top of a red background, and it kind of messed with my eyes a little bit while I was doing it, and I was doing it like on my like portable Wacom. But as soon as you start doing that, the contrast just really pops, and there's like this vibration, and I let some of that red pop through. But see, that's what I'm talking about, is like that playing around, and, you know, just, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what I love about that, is like your piece, is that it's so unexpected. Like when you see that shape and all those reds, and then that blue just pops, it's like, oh, I love that so much.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, that's one thing, you know, I don't want to turn it into a big critique of like realist painters, because so many of them I
why
love.
not?
But why not? You know, why not? I like you said, it's fun. I like the idea of, you know, everybody buys all these colors. It's like all these fancy reds, and then proceeds to dull them all down and do a painting that's a bunch of grays and browns. I'm like, why are you buying a $50 tube of red if you're just going to mix it into some mud? And I'm like, fine, whatever, you know, but I like the idea of taking that color and right out of the tube and putting it right on there.
Yeah.
You know, why not? And that's more of what I want to do. I mean, I feel like I'm starting to kind of have the, it's not like you need the courage to do it, but you have to get to that point where you're like, wait a minute, like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to put that color on there. Like, colors are beautiful. And like, when you get a tube of paint, I tell people this, is just put the paint on your palette and look at how awesome it looks and feel it.
Yeah.
And put it on. I want the painting to look like the artist had fun putting that paint on there. You know, and like, I like paintings like that. You know, I want that juicy paint. And like, it's funny though, because I don't know. I mean, that's what I like. And I think I don't see necessarily a lot of modern painters really doing that, especially the ones in modern galleries. There's a few, but a lot of, ironically, somebody's nailing something outside. Maybe you can't hear.
I don't hear it. No.
All right, good. Anyway, like, for some reason, I see a lot of like really smooth paintings in modern galleries, and it's almost like, I don't know if they don't like brushstrokes. I think that because maybe they view it as, oh, that guy's or girl is trying to be impressionist or something, and it's viewed as still kind of antiquated. But I don't know, maybe that's just me overthinking it, but I do like to just take that paint and put it on there. And like, I think that using the paint straight out of the tube is becoming more exciting to me. And what I'm trying to do is still get my satisfaction of like rendering, but also combine that with direct out of the tube, like colors.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you know, it's exciting.
Is there a specific type of palette that you normally work with? Like I work with just this. I mean, for example, I didn't know that I was using a Zorn palette. I thought I came up with that. This is like when I was in art school, like in 2004 or whatever. That's when I started getting into oil painting. And I was experimenting with different, I kind of liked the limited paletted thing. I just felt like the harmony with the colors. But then my dad is also a painter, and he was like, "Oh, that's a Zorn palette that you're doing." And I'm like, "What?" And then I looked up Zorn, and I'm like, "Oh, wow!" And I was like, I loved how much you could push a painting with only those colors. And so I tend to kind of do that a lot. I tend to work with a limited palette, but then I see, I'll see Jeremy Lipking will post something, and you'll see him working on a painting, and there will be like a million colors on his palette, and I'm like, that's crazy. There's so many colors. So where do you lie in that realm of?
I think I did go. So I started painting, and I had a million colors when I first kind of got into color oil paintings. Then I started realizing that my paintings didn't look like the painters that I liked at the time. So I thought, okay, I kind of want to limit the palette so I get really good with a few colors. So I did that for probably 10 years. And I still teach that way for most of my classes, where we have a fairly, I wouldn't call it limited, because you can still get every color, but there's nothing you don't need there. I kind of have, usually I would just have people have like one red, one blue, one yellow, maybe two earth colors instead of one red, and a white, just so that they're not dealing with too much stuff. Because oil painting, there's a lot of, the materials business is very big now, and you can buy a million things you don't really need. So I like that idea of not having anything extra that I don't need. Like, that's an attractive idea to me in general. Like in your life, it's the reason you don't have 5 automobiles, or like too many pairs of shoes, or like, you like to have, most sane people anyway have like a choice. But lately I've been, what I like though, I feel like an extension of that idea is kind of to pick 3 or 4 colors that go really well together and use those. And that's what I'm thinking now, kind of like the way you would choose like an outfit to wear or paint your room. I like to pick, like in that painting, the blue and the red. Like, I like that color combination, blue and red. So I like doing blue, red paintings. Or, other colors I love are like purple and green. Yellow and blue is like, I always think of like a Swedish flag or whatever, the colors, I like big color combinations. So that's kind of the way I think of color now. Is it doesn't have to be a color theory. It just has to do with, if you have a good eye, you identify good looking combinations of color. Like the way that you were describing putting the big red behind Bernie's head, that type of choice, like where, that's what I'm doing with that red one anyway, where the blue I changed that blue around a few times, and I was like, okay, should it be, first it wasn't a blue in the beginning, it was lighter. Then I changed it to, then I kind of switched it around to a point where it was just the right value, where it still had blue to it. Yeah. And it would just kind of complement the red. So it's not like so blue that it's like a kind of, I don't know, like too much. I think the red is, it's quite an experiment. So we'll see if it'll be totally successful. Like, I was just working on the bigger version this morning, and I'm in the process of kind of, the painting is in that typical awkward middle stage. that always happens to me where it's not rendered to the point that I'd like it to be, but the paint is starting to dry, so I can't blend it the way I want unless I totally repaint an area. That's probably the hardest part of painting for me, is that when I really want to blend an area, but I can't because it's dry. So I have to repaint these like shadow transition areas, which is just, I'm kind of not looking forward to it, but I'm just going to, I know I have to do it. It's kind of like a dentist appointment or something. It's like, I know I have to just do it. So just get it over with and dive in. And like, anyway, yeah. So it's not a limited palette anymore, I guess. I just torture my students with that. I make them use a bunch of burnt siennas.
Yeah.
just to make them sad.
I think it's fun though, man. I love that's one of the things I love about painting and, you know, oil painting, digital. It doesn't really matter to me. Painting is painting, and I think it's amazing how you can take a couple colors and do a full-on painting. And if you're doing it right, if you're focusing on the values and you know, the good, you know, the brushwork, the soft edges, composition, all these different things, people don't even notice sometimes. It's like, oh, that's just an awesome painting, you know. And it's just cool. Like my buddy Grieger does, every once in a while he'll send me a painting that he's working on. I'm like, damn, that's awesome. He's like, 3 colors, you know, and it'll be like, I'm like, what? And it'll be like, I can't even think of like one, like black, burnt sienna and white or something. And I'm like, what the heck? It doesn't, I would never even thought that. And it's beautiful. And it's just, man.
Painting is, it's weird. Painting is, it's like the more you limit the colors, if you're like, for example, if you're using burnt sienna, black and white, it's almost, because of the limitation, they can influence each other more. Like you'll be able to make that black look like blue. Yeah. Because you don't have any blue there.
Exactly.
You know, if you had blue there, it wouldn't work. You know, just, I mean, obviously, but that's
what's awesome about that. You know, that's what I love about the Zorn palette. Like,
right.
Because I usually, sometimes I'll use French ultramarine when I'm doing it, and I kind of, if I want a little bit extra in there, but I barely. It's like I call it bending the black a little bit.
Yep.
But it is really interesting how you can do a painting with just black, like alizarin crimson, maybe white and yellow ochre, and you think there's blue in there. You think there's like, you know, it's
my favorite
awesome.
thing. Yeah, my favorite thing to do lately has been so colors are weird. Like you'll get the most intensity out of the color if it's kind of a transparent, unlayered version. At least in oil painting, you know, a lot of people talk about like their colors like sinking in, because like what happens is as you layer the paint, there's more actual paint for the oil to soak into. So that's why, like, you know, in an oil painting, like a kind of one-off alla prima can have like fresher color than a painting you work on for 3 weeks, because there's actually less material for the oil to soak into. So like what I've really liked doing lately that I want to do more of is finding a huge flat area of color in and putting like I just bought like 5 different magentas just to see what the most brutally intense red I could find was. And the funny thing is like I got a pretty good one, but I'm still not satisfied with it. There's still like this acid red color that I'm searching for that I don't know who makes one, but I know what I want. I want it to be like so ridiculously strong that it almost looks like bubble gum kind of fake color. And I don't know, but I like the idea of thinning out that color and putting it on purely right out of the tube and just letting it be there and not changing it with anything and just getting that kind of acidic red. I don't know. I'm interested in that. So I tried to do it with the red painting, but I wasn't quite successful with it, but I feel like I'm getting there, I guess. I don't know. And that's another thing, you know, you don't see a lot of realist painters do that, because I think it's a little bit, it's alien to someone who's, if you spend this entire 20-hour painting trying to get this subtle color, the idea of taking pure red right out of the tube and putting it wouldn't make any sense. It's like, it's going to go against that entire like harmony that I just spent all my time creating. again, I think it's just, it's not so much that it's fun to break the rules. It's more like, and I don't even question like the rules themselves. I understand that there's like this weird kind of different schools of painting. Maybe it is just that it's fun, and I don't want abstract painters to have all the fun. You know, I like to just throw in some.
I think that it is because of I mean, dude, like some jobs, like most of my stuff is, you know, most of the time I'm working for someone else. I'm illustrating for an article or whatever it is, and I try as much as I can to have fun with it and let myself be creative. Like even though the job I'm doing now, like I'm gonna try to make it, you know, and this particular piece is like a caricature of Governor Cuomo, and
he's a caricature anyway. You don't even need to caricature us.
I really love the way this one's looking because I nailed him.
Great.
And I know he's gonna see this, so this is what's fun about it.
That's so great. He's gonna see it. I love it.
Oh, of course. I mean, hey, I'm sure he's gonna. It's a cover for Washington Examiner, so I'm sure he's gonna.
That's so great, man. But
like the cool thing about it is that I
love it.
You know, because I only have a certain amount of time, I can't think about. You know, I used to be like all about, you know, rendering the hell out of something and making paint, and I still do that depending on whatever job it is or if I have time or.
Right.
But I used to think that in order for it to be considered good, I had to render it as realistic as possible. And now I'm more like, I can make it feel realistic, but also be like, have the sexy brushstrokes and have this. Like I can draw Cuomo and have like a really good likeness and have the humor in it and have the darkness in it and all that kind of stuff. But also, like, it's sculpted with a few brushstrokes instead of rendered so tight that it's like, I mean, what's the point of that? Also, I don't have the time. And so but the thing that you said about the fun, that part of it is, this is my job. I feel very lucky that I get to do this kind of a job, but I'm still going to have fun with it. And like, and every once in a while when I'm working, I'm sure you can relate with this, I'll be, you know, I'll have an idea in my head of what I want to do. I'm working on the painting, I'm blocking it out, but then I'll just, you know, do a couple of marks. I'm like, whoa, I'm not even going to touch that. Like, that's just, that happens sometimes for me anyways. I'm like, I'm not even going to touch that. I'm leaving that there. I don't know why, but for some reason, I just got a boner.
Appropriate for the Cuomo.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like, it's almost like, I think it's about taste. Like, good taste is the worst thing. It's almost like I want to be less tasteful. That's more important. That's more exciting to me and fun. It's like don't try to be tasteful and safe about it. That's like fucking boring. It's like it's like a guitar. It's like, it reminds me of like going to see like some jazz band and like the guitar player, you know, you don't feel like, I'm like, dude, just fucking hit the fuzz pedal, man. You know, just like chill out, you know, like bend a note out of tune on purpose. Like, I don't want to hear you.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Rehearse. It would be kind of like, you know, we had that discussion about talking beforehand. It would be like if I rehearsed everything beforehand. That's what some paintings remind me of. It's like, show a little vulnerability, you know, don't just rehearse it out. Like, that's like the least sexy thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like.
No, that's exactly, I agree 100%. That's, I mean, cause to me, that's what's most exciting about a painting is like, I know I'm going to do this painting and I know I'm going to do everything I can to make it a successful painting to my personal standards of what I'm trying to achieve. But things happen that are unexpected sometimes, that there's like a life of its own almost. And, you know, just like, I mean, it's weird. I don't ever start a painting the exact same way every time. Like I like even with that Bernie thing, or I did a painting of Rick Ross for Rolling Stone where I just, for some reason I had this feeling of, you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint a bunch of violet colors and just fill up. And and when I'm painting digitally, I don't hit a fill button and fill the whole thing. I block it all in because I want it to all have like a texture and a buildup. And then I just start drawing and pulling him out of that violet. And then letting some of that pop through. There's no plan. There was no like a plan of attack. It was just spontaneous and feeling, and the end result, it has so much more energy to it. There's, what I mean?
Yeah.
I see that a lot with what you do as well. Like there's like movement. Someone keeps freaking calling me. It's annoying. But that's one thing I love is you've got like a movement. I like the brushwork, and
I'm doing it now. I think of it like sculptors, like a Michelangelo. If you look at his sculptures and his drawings, you can see him kind of cross-hatching away at the forms. So I like to move the brushstrokes kind of in a sculptural way. That's just me loving sculpture, and I like that kind of work. So, I mean, I'm really torn right now between it because I love super smooth paintings like Bouguereau. I admire the technical part of it, so it's not like by putting brushstrokes in, it's not like I'm trying to give a middle finger to like the rendering, like classical artists, because I admire that stuff. I don't know, maybe it's just, or maybe I am, I don't know. I probably have those dueling personalities where I'm kind of like, I want to do both. I like the realist smooth painting, but I also love expressionist painting, and there's something about that that's like the unrehearsed part appeals to me, the kind of honesty about that, and the kind of it's actually more tasteful in a way to me that when it's unrehearsed. I don't want the painting to, like, a friend of mine said this a while back, and I like the sentiment of it, although I haven't done it yet, but he was like, man, you should just take all your shittiest paintings and put them online. He's like, don't put up the good ones, like take the failures and put them out there. And I'm like, I like that idea, actually. It's like, I got a million paintings in here that not a million, I've probably got like 150 paintings in here that I've never shown anybody, just because they're like screw ups, because they're just like, I would just start the painting and I would just say, this just failed. I hate this painting now. And that happens to me with almost every painting, but some of them I hate more than others, where I'm just like, stick this one behind, like I'm looking right now, there's a pile of 10 paintings stacked up, more than 10, 20 stacked up right over here. And most of those I've never shown anybody, and just because I don't like them, because they probably remind me of my own like insecurities or something. It's like strange how paintings mirror like
you could take some of those paintings and do a new painting on top of it, but leave some of it showing through. I don't know, play around with it.
I've done that.
Yeah. I mean, so like, again, like that's kind of just an interesting thing. That's what I love about, like, especially with oil painting, I don't think there's any real limit to what you can experiment with and try, like technique wise and everything.
Yeah.
You're doing that painting of the woman with the red and that splash of blue. Was that blue a complete spontaneous thing that you just threw in there while you're working, or were you thinking about that before you started it?
I was thinking about that before I started, but I wasn't sure exactly how like bright it would be or the exact color it would be. I knew that I wanted a red and blue thing, and I knew I liked that shape there. Like, I definitely am going to start doing more stuff in that vein with like huge flat areas of color. Yeah. Because I like the way it looks on a wall. I just feel like that translates visually in a way that appeals to me. Like those huge unrendered areas. Just so it's just something that it loses if it's a gradation. It's Cuomo calling you, and he's like, I don't like your.
Someone keeps calling me on Facebook Messenger. Why would I answer that? It's so annoying. So anyways, it's interesting. It's fun talking with you about this kind of stuff, because I like, it's interesting, like hearing your perspective on it. I don't even know how many painters now that I've had on this podcast, but there hasn't been one that has had the same answers or or feeling about their paintings or whatever. It's always something completely different. It's pretty interesting.
Right.
It's interesting
Yeah.
how like, there might be similar results, but like a completely different way of thinking about it, the actual approach. So it's really interesting. Now I wanted to show you, I have some fan art to show you before we get out of here. I know you have to be done by a certain time.
We can go, well, up to you. I can go till, well, as long as I don't anticipate you'd want to go for another hour, but I would, as long as I'm done by, I could definitely do another half an hour, but up to you.
All right, we'll take it. We'll see how it goes. Cool. That's awesome.
Completely what you want to do.
So well, I gotta finish my deadline.
Yeah.
I gotta finish that Cuomo shit.
Yeah, good.
But
I think you finished. I don't know.
yeah.
So to speak. We'll see. Anyway,
it'll be fun. But I was wondering about your as far as like your work when it goes, as far as like gallery shows and like personal commissions. I'm wondering how does it work for you? Like, do you do a lot of commission work, or do you do whatever you want and then sell them, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not as big in the fine art world, so I'm not sure what's the best even approach to that. Well,
no, I definitely don't do many commissions. I do like 1 or 2 a year typically, because I don't always love doing them, because with the rare exception where when somebody wants you to do like a portrait and you can do whatever you want,
mm-hmm.
I don't really like to like flatter people in their portraits. I don't find portraits always that interesting for that reason, because I feel like it's so designed to mask anything truly interesting about the person. I'd rather know, but I would probably I haven't done one. I got an offer to do one last year and I turned it down. Then after coronavirus started, I was like, well, I probably could have used that money, but like, I usually just do paintings and have a show and hope that I sell something. But although I haven't been showing much lately, so I definitely, I no longer have an East Coast gallery, which is kind of a problem for me. I really need to find another one, but it's just a matter of finding the right fit. I'm kind of picky about it, but like the last show I had was like a year ago, and I did an online show, but I don't love doing that as much because I just find that it's not satisfying, because my paintings are it's just important to see them in person. It's just like the brushstrokes, the surface is so important to me. It's really hard for me. It's just so hard for me for some reason to get an accurate feeling of it. I'm sure a lot of people have the same opinion, but it's like, I just think they look better in person. So typically I try to have a show and hope that I sell there, but I teach too, just in case I don't sell anything, I'm not broke, all of that this last year got challenged. Everything was so weird, and I'm just trying to slowly inch my way back towards whatever normal is, and I don't even like using those words, but like, I fingers crossed that it gets that way. I think that I'm starting my class again next month, in person, and I'm looking forward to it, just because it keeps me sane too, to see people. I think that if you're only talking online, it gives you a warped view of what reality is. I find that people are nicer in person. I find anyway. I just find like when I go out and talk to real people, I'm like, that's right. Like because you have to cooperate with people when you go out and do stuff.
Yeah.
The people that are good at cooperating do well. But you can go online and just tell everybody to fuck themselves all day, and you'll actually get high fives for doing that. If you're online. In the real world, you can't really do that. Like maybe you can. If you're Donald Trump, maybe, but
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't operate that way though. I like people. So I definitely am looking forward to having another actual show though. I may do like a museum show where I could kind of set it up exactly how I want it. So like, because a commercial gallery, like the best galleries know how to hang a show, but not everybody does. I like to hang a show the way the most modern galleries do, where there's like one painting per wall, big space around each work. So the idea is I want you to look at that one painting.
Yeah.
Like I hate the shows where they like cram 20 little paintings onto a wall. That's what I try to avoid. So I'm trying to get away from the galleries that do that. And like this, I like to see, I'd rather see 4 paintings in a room. So yeah, I haven't really been showing lately that much, but hopefully that will change soon. We'll see.
And this, excuse me, this idea that you're experimenting with the kind of the red paintings, are you planning on doing like a series with that?
Yeah, I have a few kind of planned out now that are all going to be really kind of wild colors. I'll probably start doing more of that in general. I'm still working on kind of figuring out the best way to do it. I mean, I have I think 2 or 3 other ones that I'm excited about that I just kind of, they're not actual paintings yet, but I have the kind of, I know what I want it to look like. So once that red one is done, I'll probably, I'll start another one.
How much time does it usually take to do one of those?
That one will probably take 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe 5 hours a day. Some days I only work for an hour. Some days I'll go late. It depends. It also depends. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I can do one in a day, but I don't tend to like that kind of painting as much, unless it's like, if I'm working from life, I'll get the model for as long as I can. Yeah. And sometimes I'll work on it after the fact too. But a model can't always stay for like as long as I would like, especially lately. Although I know some models that do want to work. So that's something that's going to start up again, I think soon. But that one, I've been working on it for about 3 or 4 days now. And I would say I'll probably keep messing with it for another few days at least.
And are you a medium painter? I mean, because it's interesting. I talked with Nicholas Uribe a while, I think a couple years ago now, but he doesn't use any medium at all. It's just straight right out of the tube.
That's awesome.
Which was interesting because it creates an obvious struggle to build it. You can't like thin it to do like the big, so everything has to be, he has to like rethink how he's going to apply the paint, but it presents a challenge, but it also has kind of created a certain aesthetic or feel. For sure. It's interesting, but I was just curious if you're a medium type person. It's interesting. A lot of people have been noticing don't really use much medium.
Yeah, you don't need it. I think that I like to use as little as possible. I actually thought about doing just what you described as him doing, is not using anything. That's more for like, just because I'm self-conscious about how much trash I'm making and how bad and toxic the chemicals are. Not only for my own health, I just feel bad making so much garbage, but I haven't really done it yet. I mean, I used Gamsol and I used like walnut oil. But I have been wanting to really, I don't want to use solvents for much longer because I'm worried about what I'm breathing in, because I'm in this room all the time with this stuff, and I try to put the cover on the thing, but I do worry about it kind of. And so far I don't feel any weird health like things, but you never know. What you're really breathing in. So I definitely would like to transition to using just natural stuff. Like if I could I love that idea of just using the paint. I think that sounds appealing to me.
I don't think he's doing like massive paintings.
That's the thing. When you're doing a big one, like the red painting I'm doing now is 50 by 40 inches. So it's pretty big. And that red, I can't tell you how many like paper towels I've used with just that one painting, because the red is so powerful you just like when I'm blending an area, everything just gets covered like instantly. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm just
my dad, which is really interesting. He came up with this thing where he uses old phone books.
Really?
And that's what he uses to wipe off his brushes off. He just rips a page, keeps it there, and just like
it's a good idea. There's so many pages.
Page. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, it's better than what I do. I just feel terrible about. I've really cut down my use of like paper towels, but for this particular painting, it's like that red is so powerful. I literally went to the store and bought every bright red I could find just to test them all out and see what was the most ridiculous one. I don't know. I'm still not satisfied with it though. I just kind of like, it's messing with my eyes actually. Like when I look at that painting and I look at the painting like to my side here, the older one has some bright fucking colors too. And it looks so dull compared to the red one. It's like my vision is getting weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting how that happens. I know exactly what you mean. By the way, do you know who Roberto Prada is?
No.
He is, he's an oil painter. He's an illustrator that when I was first getting started was a huge influence on me. He
look him up.
He does like realistic type portrait painting, situations, has done a lot of stuff for Rolling Stone. But then he also did like some caricature type paintings. He did like tons of covers for Mad.
I love Mad.
Really awesome. I'm sure you've seen his work before. He's got a very specific style and look. But the reason I'm bringing it up is I did a podcast with him, and it's Roberto Prada. I can send you a link, but but it's interesting because he doesn't use anything toxic anymore. A few years back, he actually almost died. For years he was painting in a space that didn't have enough ventilation and different things. And he ended up having to get a full bone marrow transplant. Like, yeah, I mean, it was really serious. Like he almost didn't make it. It was a pretty huge deal, and it was a direct.
Did he have any like effects? Was it like super sudden, or I wonder?
No, things just started happening, and he started getting really, really sick, and they basically pinned it down to years of him inhaling like the toxins and all the different things, because he didn't have really good ventilation, and but he's really serious about being safe, and but you should check out the podcast because he goes into detail about it, and it's pretty interesting.
Well, he's a Mad illustrator. Then I definitely, because I used to love Mad magazine.
Yeah, he's done pretty much. When I was first getting started in illustration, he was like the GOAT. He was in everything you can think of. Rolling Stone covers, everything you can think of. So he still does, a lot of that stuff. But anyways, I just thought maybe you might find it interesting because, like, I mean, I don't do as much oil painting as I would like to. It's hard for me to find extra time unless I'm doing a commission. I try to do as much as I can, but it's not easy with everything else I'm doing. But when I do, I usually use like walnut oil or whatever. But
walnut's good.
But I'm more like. What was it? I'm trying to think of what it's called right now. Liquid. I was using liquid for, because it would help speed up. Like I had to do like a really quick turnaround.
Right.
And he bitched me out. He's like, that stuff is like the worst. Like it's so toxic. It's like,
I don't like it either.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, I was just using it to try to speed up the,
I hear you.
It worked for the job I was doing, but
I'm I'm doing the opposite where I'm trying to slow the drying time down.
Yeah.
Because I like to be able to blend into like the paint.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird. It's also like it's interesting talking about illustrators because maybe it's less so now, but there's that whole like division of fine art versus illustration bugs me because to me, it's not really that different.
Yeah.
And all like my classical painters that I love are basically doing like illustrations of like biblical scenes or mythological scenes. It's all illustration to me.
Yeah.
So exactly. I just don't understand. I feel like the fine arts, the people that are teaching fine art now, are kind of missing out on that part of it. That kind of there's a few painters that are incredible that are doing like multi-figure kind of compositions, but there's only a few, you know, and I feel like that's something that they could kind of integrate more, you know, like, you know, placing 5 figures in a room. I see more illustrators willing to tackle that type of composition.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of illustrators that it's full on fine. They're all like, I think it's really silly. I mean, it's a good piece of art. I mean, there's concept artists that are just like master painters.
Unbelievable. You know?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in art school, I briefly went to art school. But I remember I was in this watercolor class, and I love watercolor painting, and I was working on a bunch of stuff. And then the teacher gave us an assignment. We had to copy. We had to take an oil painting from a master oil painter, and we had to try to replicate it with watercolor, see how close we could get to the look and feel and everything. Nice. And I chose a Rockwell painting, the one with the police officer sitting on a bench with the little boy. I just love that painting so much. I love the storytelling in it and everything. Yeah. And when I brought it in, he goes, "Oh, that's not a master oil." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's Norman fucking Rockwell." Like he's one of my favorite.
Lana Del Rey's record.
Yeah, he's like one of my favorite illustrators, and like, and I really was influenced.
It's amazing. Come on.
Yeah, I was influenced by him, like especially early on in my career. That he was like, I was all about Leyendecker and Rockwell, and like, I love that stuff. Rockwell. Yeah, and so I had to argue.
Parish.
I had to argue with him, and I was like, and it was funny. It came down to it better look exactly like his painting. I'm like, okay, it will, you know. and as that was like that's the point of the assignment, I'm gonna do it, and I did it, you know. But like, it was just, I just remembered thinking how silly this is that I have to argue for like why is Van Gogh considered a master, you know, fine artist, but Rockwell's not? I mean, isn't it subjective anyways? Like, why are you labeling who and telling us?
Van Gogh is always an interesting one to me. Van Gogh is so like, it's like, I love Van Gogh, but sometimes I just think, was he really that good? Come on. Like it's almost like, can't we be honest about anything? Like, everybody's like, they love Van Gogh, but there's something perverse about his paintings selling for $60, $80 million. And the guy was struggling with the worst problems his whole life. Yeah. And none of the people would have ever wanted to hang out with him that buy his work now, because he was kind of a rough character, and he was poor, and he liked poor people, and he hung out with them. Yeah. And it's like, no, you wouldn't have liked Van Gogh. Van Gogh's nothing like you. And like that whole money thing, like, and he's a weird one, because it's like there's a thing where he's so expressive of something, but it's not. It's almost like Van Gogh. If you read his letters, he desperately just wanted to be a good painter, and he was like really sincere and caring, and like he admired paintings, he admired classical painters, and he just wanted to get good at it. Yeah. And like, you know, and I love reading his letters, and just, but he was just struggling to be a good painter. I kind of have always had the feeling with him that I mean, obviously he didn't sell one painting while he was alive, and he wasn't famous while he was alive. You know, it happened way, way later. But when I look at his paintings, I love, there's a lot of charm, and there's a lot that's beautiful about his work. But at the same time, I get the feeling when you look at one of his paintings of like the bedroom, for example. Oh yeah.
I think he was actually trying to paint it realistic, but he couldn't.
Maybe.
And that's, I mean, there's a lot of his paintings like that where like he's got something so charming about the brush strokes and the way he's using the color and everything. But it's the same thing. Like I remember in, I can't remember if it was Matisse or I can't remember which artist, but when I was in my art history class, we're going through this whole thing of the teacher was wanting to ask us what is art and all that kind of stuff, and showing us different slides, and is this a good painting? Is this whatever? What do you think about this? And I can't remember. Like I said, I think it might have been Matisse, but there was this painting, and it's like a woman lounging in this chair and everything, and with some drapes or whatever, very typical. And I just was like, no, I don't think it's a good painting. And I mean, she lost her shit. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's not a good painting. Like, I look at it, you're just thinking it's a piece of art because it's old and there's, it's somehow that makes it like a masterpiece. But this guy was honestly trying to draw and paint this woman. This is not ironic painting. He didn't do this because he's trying to have a style and he's purposely this. No, he was trying for better and wasn't achieving it. This is the worst anatomy I've seen. This is the worst. I mean, it's like if you were, and it's like if he was actually like, my point is he was aiming, he was trying to Babe Ruth it, but he wasn't there yet. It just wasn't. And it's famous because it's old, but it's not good, and it's okay to say that. And I said, if this painting was done by someone in this school and they hung it in the hallway, everyone would just laugh at it.
That would be a good book, like shitty anatomy book. Like nobody ever wants to make fun of paintings, but I would buy that. I would like examples of like really badly painted like legs and arms, like people that just fucked up and like gave up. Like that's the art book that I want. It's like, well, the guy I always think of for like awkward painting is Edward Hopper. I always like, because he's like revered now because his paintings have a vibe of like this vision of an America that's long gone or something. So there's something very romantic there. But I often look at his
Is he the one that did the James Jean Elvis? Am I thinking?
He did. So Edward Hopper did like the Nighthawks, like where there's the people in the diner at night in New York City. Okay. Yeah. And he did like lighthouses and just like the guy in the movie theater with the girl in the movie theater with the guy alone outside. So there's like that theme of like kind of modern isolation. There's a lot of interesting themes, but a lot of times I just think he came up with it by accident. I mean, I should probably read more of his letters because I haven't read that much about him. But when I look at his brushstrokes, they just always look like he's just miserable, like he's trying to get it. Like the women always look strangely like mannequins. Like he's got this ideal of like what a woman looks like in the statuesque sense. And they all look like these like they look like robots. They're very weird. Like there's that famous one called People in the Sun that he did with these like people sitting outside in chairs and the sunlight hitting them, and it's kind of like interesting in how weird it is. But he reminds me of a painter like that it always looks like he was just kind of like, fuck it, like painting is miserable, like he can't quite get it, but there it is anyway. And there's other things that are good about it, and there usually are, like the design is, speaking of like big shapes, Hopper has some of that, like the sunlight coming through the window and it casts this big bright shape on the wall. He has some of that. Like, so there's that, like there's a few like modern figure painters that are kind of accepted, or a few like realists that are kind of accepted that you'll find at like the Whitney, for example, or like, big modern art museums like the MoMA or something. Like Fairfield Porter is another one whose paintings there's an element to them that's beautiful. He's dead, so I can talk shit about him. I don't want to talk shit about anybody who's alive, but I get in trouble, even though it's fun. Like, talking shit is underrated because
excuse me.
I always know that I like people. Like if you're talking shit about somebody, it's actually, people are like, oh, what a terrible thing to do. No, it's actually not, because that means that you trust the person you're talking to. So it's, I'm not going to say anything. Fairfield Porter's dead, so he's a great painter, but he has some of that element too of kind of awkwardness of like, it looks like he was trying like hell to get the kid's face right, but instead it's like a little lopsided, and then people read into that, oh, look at the vulnerability, look at the truth, like behind, like, and it is true. Like if you can't quite get something right, there is something beautiful about that. It's so much more honest than like, look what a badass I am, everybody. Here's my newest piece. It's like, there's something about, well, I tried really hard. I couldn't quite get it, but I know you all know what that feels like, or maybe that's just a more interesting thing. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's something appealing. And that's probably why in a lot of the modern world, there's a kind of backlash against the skillful painting, because it doesn't seem truthful to people. It seems like they're trying to hide
factory.
It's like
almost like, I mean, that's kind of what I think. Like I went to the BP Awards accidentally when I was in Scotland, and I just happened to see that. I'm like, what the heck? And I went in there and saw the show, and there was some awesome paintings in there.
Yeah.
But there was a few that were just so hyper photorealistic that it was unreal, like huge paintings. And I would get right up to the painting and I still can't, it still looks like a print, like a photo print. I'm like,
there's some incredible like photorealists now, but I don't necessarily find it interesting because
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It was impressive as far as technical, but it's kind of like, what's the point?
It's the same thing. It's like I'd rather see it's not like I want to see a fuck up or something, or it's like I'd rather see something more integrated with someone's life in a way. You know, it's almost like it's like it's like the person that goes to their job, then they go home and like turn on the TV and watch football. It's like I get that vibe, or it's like the insurance salesman who's miserable at his job. Or just that's not. There's just something fake about that kind of total separation from like who a person is and their work. I like people who kind of, or where the work is kind of integrated in some way.
Well, it's like I was thinking about when we were talking about this, I was thinking about Lucian Freud's work, because it's interesting. Like he's one of those artists where I don't know exactly if he was also trying to paint someone, if he was really trying to accurately capture the proportions and the perspective and everything, because he definitely wasn't.
Yes.
Things are stretched and pulled, but there is something besides the fact that I really enjoy a lot of his brushwork, and it's crazy, some of it. It's just, there's something about it that's just like, oh, I love this.
I love him too.
The bizarre like pulling of things, and someone's leg is like a little bit way too long, but then just the use of color and everything was just like, I can't tell if he was just fucked up and that's how he was seeing it, or if he just, but there's something about that is like really interesting. Like,
he is definitely interesting. I mean, he's got that fine line between like, if it was any more naive looking, I probably wouldn't like it. Like, but I like the kind of disgusting gray, thick paint, and the kind of just like spread-eagled model with like the kind of just like sitting there totally unselfconsciously posed, nudes. I love that stuff, and that it's more honest, it's definitely, I'd rather have one of his paintings than a lot of what I see, now in figure painting, myself included. I mean, I feel like that's more what I need to go towards. There's, but I think that he's one of those guys that will influence a lot of bad painters, because it's like, it's not like he's great, but it's almost like you do get that feeling that he couldn't help painting that way. There's almost like an unselfconscious way that he was warping the proportions.
Dude, yeah, exactly. I think one of the things that first caught my eye when I first saw his work was how honest he paints breasts. You know what I mean? Like, like, a lot of art school students and even, people, it's life drawing. And then when they get out of school, it's like, what are you going to do with all those life drawings? Like, you have to come up with a new portfolio. Like no one, if you're an illustrator, you're not going to get hired because you have still lifes, or you have to do something with what you learned. But he somehow would paint women and men in a more like a more honest depiction. I loved like how he would, there would be like this cool colors just coming in around the breasts, where like, wow, it was just interesting how he would do that. And like the veins, he would add in like little veins and stuff. And,
yeah, that's great.
and it's just like, man, and like I know, normally I don't see that kind of stuff. Stretch marks and all that, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny the way that people paint men and women is a whole other thing, but he seemed to paint them both with that same kind of, leering eye. It's almost like every little part he's kind of looking at in a way. He doesn't he doesn't paint like women the way a lot of kind of cheesy, mostly male figure painters paint women.
And I would love it, like how it'd be like this cool, like if you're looking at like a leg, like up by the thigh, it'd be like all like this cool colors. And then as it gets towards the knee, it just all of a sudden gets really warm. And
didn't he have like 17 kids or something though? I've heard he was a real shithead in his personal life.
I so like be surprised.
Ironically, he does like the best paintings of women, but treats them terrible.
I
mean, but whatever. I mean, he wouldn't be. I mean, he's certainly not unique in that. But like, I do like also probably because for that same reason, when you're bombarded with classical themes, it's sometimes refreshing to see the almost kind of opposite, kind of whatever take on it. That's I guess to kind of round it out in a way. It's like it's just nice to maybe represent, and that like that word gets used a lot. It's like kind of represent a figurative theme. And maybe like you can still render the figure even, but it's all about like how the artist is looking at it, and it's not just like, and maybe he doesn't give a fuck, what the people what the ateliers would say.
Yeah.
And
that's I think that's a good way to go about it. I mean,
and the thing is, I love the ateliers too. I mean, I love it all. I mean, there isn't like a style of painting that I don't like. And I will say in defense of those schools, there's a lot of pressure now to not be classical, and you're viewed as, part of the patriarchy or whatever, which I won't get into it too much. I mean, we can do it another time, but people that are my friends know how I mean, I'm like, well, I'm a classical artist, I'm not going to just let somebody tell me yesterday that the last 30 years of my life, the skill that I've tried to do is bullshit because it's, a dead white male's like art. I'm like, no, I think it's for everybody. And the one thing I think is now when you go to like an atelier, is it as diverse as you'd like? Maybe not, but I do think it's more diverse than ever. Like in terms of the people studying classical art, it's definitely not just a white guy's art anymore. It's a really, like the last time I was over at Florence Academy talking to the students there, it was really diverse student body. And I was like, I was kind of having a discussion with a prominent art critic on Instagram once about this. And I was like, hey man, don't just write off the classical people, because for the most part, the classical people are like the most sincere, dedicated people that aren't doing it for money. They just really like painting. So I'm like, man, don't just write these people off. Like these are like the nicest people.
Yeah.
Even though I do, kind of want to rebel against something, not even rebel, but I just want to do what looks good to me. I admire all the academic stuff that I see because they're so sincere. They're just doing it because they love it, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, speaking of, I want to see if you're ready to face the truth, man.
Oh, okay.
Let me share some. You ready to face the truth, man? I don't actually ever say that. I just said that now for you.
It's like pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready to face the truth? So did you see?
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know anybody was going to do these. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The mouth being big definitely applies to me.
This is by Jawenk Wei.
That's great. Thank you.
There's a few of them.
I'm like looking at it and like, these are so good.
Look at when you go back and forth. It looks so funny. That's
oh my god.
Hilarious. This is by Mr. Ponce. This is pretty funny.
They're great. It's a little too accurate.
I really do like the exaggeration choices in this one.
Hey, they got the bright blue color in the background, so I
Yeah.
approve of that too.
Yeah, there you go.
Beautiful.
This is by Jacques Lemonnier.
That's beautiful. He's got the cross hatching.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's pretty
Excellent.
cool.
Definitely got my quarantine hair. Wow, totally unique, original. That one's got a more almost feminine side.
Yeah, this is by Dominic Zeilinger.
Amazing.
This reminds me of like almost Picasso-ish a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
That's like totally unique, totally different than the last. The last three had a little more in common, maybe, but
yeah.
They're all getting. That one. This is great. This is like this is expressionist style.
Yeah.
This is like me when I get back into my like LSD guru days. This is great. This might be this is my favorite one so far.
This is.
I love the glasses morphing from green to blue.
Yeah.
Like that's totally unique, and the sideways mouth and the eyes going this way. This one, I would put this on my wall. I like this.
It's really cool. This is by Paula Petlawani.
This has some expressionist like elements.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're all getting my quarantine hair, which is great.
It's pretty funny. It's so, I think it's hilarious going from like when you look at them and you just see them see it change. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
This one is by Mark Young.
Wow, these are some talented people. That's got some beautiful. One thing I love about some of the there's a few illustrators that I love recently, and that I realize I really need to get better at is kind of distorting one side of the figure. I really need to do that. So yeah, that's a beautiful one too.
Yeah, it's cool. This one is by Christine Vradi.
Somebody was very, very meticulous. Amazing. Wow. Yeah. I'm flattered. People, I didn't even know these people are going to do these. Amazing.
Yeah. No, I love her. She's actually been subbing, I think the last 5-6 or so. And always like really nice. I really love her painting style. Like it's
almost unnerving to like look at such a exacting depiction of yourself. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. Wow. I'm impressed.
Cool. Yeah, it was really funny. I had Patrick from the Black Keys on a couple weeks ago, and she did one of him, and he was just like, he's like, whoa, I'm kind of a little bit creeped out by,
that smile. I don't know. Would I trust that guy? I don't know.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
It's probably because like, excellent. They all kind of like portray a slightly different vibe,
Yeah.
This one, like, this guy is, I might trust this guy more than the previous one. This guy's a little more trusting.
I don't know. This is by a Serene Zataut. I'm sure I did not say that right. I don't know. This guy kind of looks like maybe he's not allowed to go to Chuck E. Cheese anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the kind of vibe I get. It's
that's the vibe I'm giving.
It's a cool style though. Like digitally, like it's kind of interesting. Almost like I don't know. Like normally, like I'm all about soft edges on things,
Right.
But there's something about the style that kind of works,
Yeah, and I like these shapes coming down the side too. That's an interesting choice. Yeah. No, I see that. Interesting.
That's awesome.
Wow, amazing.
Well, that was the last one.
Those are great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
I'm flattered that people are doing that. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy some people forget because I sometimes I don't even say I'm going to do that, and it shocks people. So it'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I was only briefly shocked.
Well, I'm talking with Scott Burdick next week, and I'm not telling him, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, cool.
It'll be kind of funny. But hey, man, thank you so much for joining me for this. It's so much fun to talk with you, and definitely would love to have you on again, man. Get more.
Yeah, I'd love to. I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, we can get into all kinds of stuff. But you're easy to talk to, and you like have a lot of things to talk about. So I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, and do you have anything coming up that you want to? Is there anything like any shows coming up that you have planned, or?
Oh God,
your Instagram and all that kind of stuff.
I don't really. I mean, I do have some things. It's mostly like everything is kind of up in the air now, only because we're kind of coming out of like I'm working on another show, but I don't know exactly
like
when
when.
It's gonna be. I mean, I'm doing all the paintings, but I'm not totally sure about it. And everything is weird now, but no, I mean, other than that, I mean, I have workshops that I'm hoping to do. Like I'm hoping to go back to Italy this summer, but I'm not assuming that I'll be able to go, but I mean, I usually teach there during the summer. So I'm getting ready to try to get back into traveling and hopefully doing workshops. And I'm just hoping that, that starts to happen again, if slowly, whatever, I'll be happy to do anything.
Yeah.
No, right now I'm just kind of in the middle of, I'm getting back into work mode. Like it took me about, I would say 5 months to really get going, finally feel like I had a direction again. So I'm just getting back to, I guess, normal, so to speak. So, but thank you.
Yeah. No, of course, man. It's great to finally meet you and talk to you.
Yeah, man.
So.
Well, yeah. Let's if you want to do it again, a year from now, whatever, 8 months, whenever, But
I'll definitely be in touch, man.
We can do it again. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, same here, man. And to everyone else, we'll see y'all next time. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bang.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, man.
You want answers?